What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, and now it is time to delve deep into that shit show, which was Tottenham Hotspur yesterday at Anfield. It finished Liverpool 5, Tottenham 1 on the day that Liverpool were coronated as the new Premier League champions.
Day of celebration.
A day of celebration at Anfield, apart from a small little tiny segment of the stadium, which I'm led to believe actually were a lot of Liverpool fans in that section.
So even smaller than you would have thought.
So even smaller than usual. They're saying apparently it was as many as over half the away end was Liverpool fans. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've been told. And if that's true, first of all, I want to say each and every Spurs fan that sold their ticket to Liverpool fans are an absolute disgrace. More of a disgrace than the team that were on the pitch yesterday. How can you be selling your tickets to Liverpool fans in an away end? That is just disgraceful. Shocking, to be honest.
Yeah. And it just goes to show kind of the state of our club as well, that fans are willing to do that. And, you know, first of all, they're stopping Tottenham fans maybe who've never been to an away game or struggled to get away tickets from going. Not that yesterday was something I would have been desperate to have been at, but I think the fact that they're willing to give up the tickets to fans in the home end goes to show kind of where the fans' heads are at the moment. They're not even bothered about having fellow Tottenham fans in the away end with them supporting the team. They'd rather get the money and give it to home fans looking to celebrate a potential league challenge, because they think that the money is more valuable than having Tottenham fans supporting the club in the away end, which is shocking and disappointing, and just goes to show kind of where the head of a lot of the fan base is at the moment.
Yeah. But look, aside from that, it was a really, really hard day yesterday. Just like, I was struggling so badly during the watch along yesterday. Like, I just wanted the game to end after about 25 minutes, after we went 2-1 down. And just, you know, the game started well. You know, the first 10 minutes, we came out of the traps pretty fast. I thought Maddison was playing well. Solanke was working really hard up top. We got that goal. We were looking dangerous from set pieces as well. Great header, by the way, from Dom Solanke about 12 minutes in. And then after that, it just went to absolute shit. And it's kind of expected, isn't it? Because on a day like you saw the scenes outside the stadium, thousands and thousands of Liverpool fans outside the ground watching the game as well, celebrating as each goal went in. You know, on days like that, it usually is inevitable that Spurs are going to lose, but there's a manner in which to lose in, and the manner in which we lost yesterday was truly disgraceful by any stretch of the imagination from everyone involved. But look, it was nice to see the team come out a bit fast and take the lead, but that's pretty much where it ended.
Glorious 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What a 10 minutes at Anfield. Make a DVD out of those 10 minutes. But look, once you saw the lineup and once you saw kind of how we were approaching the game, make even more changes from the game against Forest. That was already a much changed team. Knowing we got a massive game on Thursday, hearing Maddison's comments after the game as well, I think it tells a story about where the squad's head's at, where the manager's head's at when coming into this game. Before the game, we said we expect many, many changes. I think it was probably even more changes than expected because we had Gray in midfield, which we probably didn't expect. And I think when you take all that to consideration, I think we're all expecting a fairly heavy defeat going. Even though Liverpool aren't in the best of form performance-wise and they're not playing at their best, we know that this is going to be a buoyant atmosphere because they had 1 point to basically to lift the titles at home. And it was always going to be a very, very difficult day. Doesn't make it any easier watching it. You still feel that pain. Even though we expected what we saw yesterday, it still was painful watching it and watching 90 minutes of much of it utter dross and lack of passion, fight, you know, lack of kind of pride for the badge, you know, allowing some of the things to happen, like the second and third goals, the manner in which we conceded them, the manner in which we were pulled apart in that second half with minimal fuss, and it was basically a procession for Liverpool yesterday. And it felt like they were playing a side. They were just willing participants who weren't basically going to make it difficult for them to win that title, and that's hard to take and it's hard to watch, but if you would have told me before the game this game was going to finish 5-1 and we were going to be battered, I wouldn't have been surprised. And that's what happened.
No, I wouldn't have been surprised either. And I think we both I don't think you would have found a Spurs fan that didn't expect a heavy defeat going into this, or at least defeat. But like you said, it's all about the manner in which Spurs conducted themselves on the pitch yesterday, and it's nothing short of disgraceful. I mean, it came to a state where Mo Salah's literally taking selfies during a game with the Liverpool fans. I mean, how embarrassing can it get? And the facial expressions that Mo Salah was making when he's scoring, he's like, he couldn't believe how easy it was. Like, I've never actually been so embarrassed watching Spurs before, and I've seen some embarrassing performances in my time and embarrassing results. And yeah, you could say this is 5-1 against the champions elect and all that kind of stuff, which is all true. But these kind of moments are the moments that stick with you.
Yeah. Well, look, let's hope it doesn't stick with us for too long, because we've got a big game on Thursday. And look, we do have to put it at the back of our minds, and we do. It's a massive game, one of the biggest games we've had in a long time. So I think it is important we try and kind of get over it quickly. But I agree. It's also important that that there's acknowledgement. I mean, which I haven't heard too much acknowledgement, I guess, from players or the manager after this game about how bad that was, about how. Like, there's got to be some sort of fundamentals about a performance. And yeah, look, to be fair, going into the game, going to Anfield with a midfield of Gray, Bergvall, Maddison, having a backline of Davis, Danso in there as well, like at centre back, it is a recipe for disaster. Let's be honest, it's never going to be easy with going into it with that kind of experience and expecting to get a result, but. No closing down for shots.
Like, I mean, the only player you mentioned there is really Archie Gray. Everyone else should be, good enough and old enough and, to manage a situation like that. I mean, Bergvall, we've been saying week in, week out, he's been doing it. He's the youngest player apart from Archie Gray. Apart from Gray, Danso, Davis, Doggy, Spence, Maddison, all should be able to handle something like that. And all should be showing better than themselves than they did.
Yeah, but you're going to Anfield against basically their best 11, and we're expecting that midfield to handle it. It was never going to happen. They were never going to be able to handle it.
It's not about handling it. It's about showing some effort and desire. That's the worry here. It's not exactly about being battered. That's not the worry here. The worry here is how much of a lack of fight there was from the players and how basically they just didn't try on the pitch. That's what it looked like. They just looked like they weren't trying and were just like, look, we've come here to get battered and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Which obviously didn't happen in the first 10 minutes, but as soon as we conceded, it was like, all right, the tide's turned, essentially. That's it, basically. As soon as we conceded that goal, it was almost like inevitable what was going to happen. And obviously they had a goal ruled out from offside, and then they went on to very quickly take charge of that game. And it was they had just an air of inevitability about it. And it was hard to watch, very, very much hard to watch. And it was like really awful viewing for any Tottenham fan watching that game, like sitting here, and especially when you've fans who have travelled from London to all that way, paid money. I know some fans have given up their tickets, but the fans who did travel up to watch that game and paid a lot of money to go see that, to be served that, is disgusting, really. And there should be some acknowledgement from the Tottenham side that what we saw on that pitch, regardless of the result, is not good enough.
So what would you like to see happen? What should have happened after?
There should have been some acknowledgement from the players and the manager. From the comments that I've seen, I haven't seen any sort of acknowledgement that that basically what happened on that pitch wasn't good enough. It was like, oh yeah, it was disappointing. We had a good start and then we let the game get away with us. Maddison saying, yeah, we have to put this game in the back of our minds. We've got a big game Thursday. Like, it's almost like they want to forget about it immediately. And that, look, I understand it, because in a way that we do need to put it at the back of our minds, but maybe say that the next day, like, this has just happened, like that defeat, that performance had just happened, and there should be acknowledgement that this is not what we basically represent, and this is not how this is not acceptable to be putting out performances like that. And there was no acknowledgement of that, and that for me is very disappointing.
We need to talk about Vicario, man, because he seems to be having stinkers week in, week out in the Premier League now, and it's been happening for a couple of weeks. And I don't know what's going on with him. We seem to be asking this question, what is going on with Vicario, for the past couple of weeks. And yesterday, the amount of times he was just playing it back to Liverpool, Like it happened so many times, particularly in that second half. I mean, his distribution out of the back yesterday was nothing short of embarrassing. I thought he was flapping from a few crosses as well. There was a couple that he caught, but I mean, I'm not going to put any fault on him in probably any of the goals that went in, because I thought, you know, they were all good strikes and clinical finishes, but it's his playing out of the back and his distribution that just frightened the hell out of me. And it was just like, how can you be so bad?
Yeah, I have to rewatch a lot of his mistakes because he's definitely given the ball away way too much, and definitely for some reason he has this propensity to get the ball on his left foot before passing it when he's right-footed, and clearly his passing isn't as good when he's on his left foot. And I don't know why he keeps. Maybe it's the opposition forcing him onto his left foot. Maybe they've identified a weakness and basically force him onto his left foot and then force him to pass out the back. But he seems to want to do these passes into midfield on his left foot, and we're getting caught time and time again now. Is it that the players in midfield are not showing for the ball and they're not fighting to win it when they should be? Or is it just the passes are so bad it's constantly giving the ball away and constantly putting us back under pressure? I think it's probably a bit of both, but from what I remember, definitely the accuracy of his passes leaves a lot to be desired. And now he's becoming a bit of a joke with especially home fans. You know, they're starting to make fun of him. They're starting to put pressure on him. They're starting to those weighing, like, you know, when they go, "Way," every time he kicks the ball.
At Wolves, it was terrible.
Yeah, Wolves, it was bad. Sarcastic jeers. That's the word I'm looking for. They're basically sarcastically jeering him now. And that's obviously not great for his confidence at all. And yeah, ever since that Chelsea game, really, the Premier League performances, especially away from home, have been really, really bad. Really bad. Well, I guess at home as well against Forest, it was also very bad. So I don't know what is going on with him. I don't know why his confidence has really dipped. Definitely, it seems like a confidence thing. But he's got no worries about that second or third goal it was. Absolutely giving pelters to defence, which is fair enough because they deserve it for someone they're defending. But he's not taking any responsibility, I guess, from some of the awful mistakes he's making. And definitely in recent weeks, his performances have dipped alarmingly, it's fair to say, in the Premier League. Look, in the Europa League, it's still pretty decent, but in the Premier League, it's dipped massively. And it's hard to put your finger on why exactly it's happened, but it's just like that Chelsea game, he was like a bit shaky, and all of a sudden, he's now making mistakes week in, week out, and he's looking worse and worse.
And he's one of the ones that's supposed to have that kind of mentality, and one of the leaders in the dressing room, and he's the one that's supposed to be keeping up these kind of sort of standards. Well, they all should be, but I mean, he should be one of the ones leading that. And it seems to be getting worse and worse every week with Vicario. And, you know, you can't even drop. You can drop him for the Premier League games, but we just got to hope and pray this doesn't creep into the Europa League displays. Because if that happens against Bodo or something, then we're pretty much on a hiding to nothing.
Well, all we can say is in the Europa League it hasn't happened yet. So I don't think we're going to drop him for those games. But
look, he's in the Europa League against Frankfurt. We were just going long every time, and it wasn't really a worry. But if we do start playing out the back and he does start showing these traits, then it's going to be, you know.
Well, in the first game we won.
Yeah, I guess.
Maybe I just hope Bodo don't put him under too much pressure. But for sure, that's something that, look, to be honest, it's something that I've noticed, not this bad, but he's never been an elite ball out the back kind of goalkeeper. He's been like decent, especially when he first came. Like, he seems a lot more comfortable on the ball than Lloris. But I very quickly saw that this guy isn't like up there with the best keepers when it comes to playing out from the back.
Isn't that what we wanted from a keeper, though? Like, isn't that what one of the remits were for bringing in a keeper, someone that is good with their feet?
Which is why Raya was our first choice, but we didn't pay the money.
So I don't understand, with the recruitment team. First of all, I've liked Vicario since he's come in. I think, you know, he's got a bit about him. I like his shot stopping. And when he first came back from injury, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. But going back to the recruitment of Vicario, if Raya is your number one choice, and the one kind of the best USP he's got is kind of his ball playing ability with his feet. Obviously, he's got other attributes as well that are very good, but that's the one thing we probably looked at and being like, look, this is the keeper for us in terms of the way we want to play. And how do you go from Raya to Vicario? I just don't understand it.
I never saw Vicario one of his biggest strengths in playing out the back. Even when I was looking at his time at Empoli, they weren't really that kind of team, so he didn't have to like do that often. He wasn't really a massive passer. Now, he was an upgrade on Lloris when it comes to passing out the back, and I still think that, and I still think he's probably better than a few keepers in the league, but it's not his biggest, it's not a strength of his, I would say. It's not something that I look at and think that he's good at that. I think if you ask him to play it simple and you ask him to, look, sometimes he can have a good clip to the fullback and stuff like that, but when you put him under pressure and you ask him to use that ability on the ball, and when the pressure's on and players are being marked and he has to be super accurate, he's clearly struggling right now with that. And on top of that, there are times now even worse where he's looking incredibly shaky. He's giving the ball away. He had that moment against Wolves where he gave it straight to Larson right in front of the goal. Against Bournemouth, he had a couple of moments. And yesterday, when he got the ball at his feet, that was that one time he was forced to play outplay for a throw because he had no options. I think it's a mix between some players are hiding when we're being pressed really high and aggressively, and players need to show for the ball to show confidence of playing this way. Some players are hiding in those moments and like basically hiding behind the players pressing them, basically saying, I don't want the ball. That's their fault as well. But as well, Vicario, his passing has been very haphazard, and it's shown basically a clumsiness to it, which is not good enough at this level. Now, I wouldn't say it's been this bad always. I think it's definitely been worse recently than it has been beforehand. But for one reason or another, we can't seem to solve this issue in recent weeks of how he can stop making these kind of mistakes, and that's a big worry for sure.
Yeah. Archie Gray, let's talk about him, because in my opinion, obviously in hindsight, putting Archie Gray in the six was a massive mistake yesterday against a rampant Liverpool side and rampant Liverpool midfield, and he was clearly overawed by the physicality of their midfield. A few of the goals, were down to him, and I just don't understand the decision to not play Basuma in that position and play Archie and not play Archie Gray maybe in the 8 or even at like a right back or something. Albeit if he did play right back, it probably would have been the same kind of scenario. But yeah, second time he's playing in a midfield as a 6 is at Anfield in their title-winning game. It just, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, aren't you the one that said you never want to see Basuma in a Spurs shirt ever again?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
When?
After his line. Now, you said, have you lost trust in Basuma? You never want to see him play?
I have lost trust in Basuma, but at least he has a bit more physicality about him, and he's like a man, you know what I mean? Archie Gray's a little boy, making his name in the game, and you're sending him out there to the Wolves pretty much.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I think it was clearly too much for him, which I don't understand. Like, Ange said it after the game. He's like, we put 2 young centre midfielders in the midfield, and it proved too much for them. Well, you decided to do that. Like he knew what was probably going to be the outcome. Obviously, the excuse would be, we've got Thursday and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to,
but Thursday's not an excuse when Basuma's sitting there.
No, I mean, I guess the argument would be it's a learning curve for him, and a player's got to go through this kind of thing to improve as a player. I guess, especially in that position, that'd be the argument. I probably would have played Basuma. Obviously, we predicted Basuma would have started in this kind of game. I don't see the result massively changing based on that decision, but maybe Archie Gray's confidence doesn't take a massive hit, especially the fact that he got hauled off at half time as well. Didn't help. It was quite telling, I feel, that we took Archie Gray off, but we didn't bring Basuma on, did we? At half time, we brought on Sarr and Kulusevski, and we moved Bergvall to the 6 in that second half. So I don't know if if you're not going to play Basuma at that point, I don't know why he was even in the squad. But I guess he said Bentancur, they're just managing him, for whatever reason. He's played a lot recently, so they didn't want to play him. But I guess from a point of view of Basuma, basically, if you're going to basically throw someone to the walls, it might as well be Basuma and not Gray. I think that's fair enough, and I think I probably would have done that myself. But Gray has to go through these. He has to go through these periods if he's going to play in that position long term in the Premier League, and these are the learning curves he's going to have to go through. And it's not nice to see, but he's going to have to basically start at Anfield at some point in maybe not this element, but at some point, I would like to see it done in a more settled team after he's had a few more games in that position 100%. So I don't like the fact that he did it yesterday, to be honest. I think it was a bad decision, and the fact that he got hauled off at half-time probably shows that. He probably should have started Basuma. But I guess, going into the game, the argument would be like, Gray's got to learn that position. And in this kind of scenario where we're resting players and we've got to play Thursday, maybe this is a time to try and get him learning in that position, especially in this kind of game. It'll be difficult for him, but then that's the kind of start of where you start to learn things in these kind of performances. And I think, we've seen players go through similar things this season and then they improve. And maybe Gray's going to be playing a lot more in the midfield. If Gray is going to be playing a lot more midfield between now and the end of the season in the Premier League, I don't have as much of an issue with it. If it's going to be he played in this game and now he's out the team, then I have a massive issue with it.
Yeah, he should play. Why not play him in the next 4 Premier League games in midfield? It'll be good to see if he can develop any sort of kind of warrant to stay there for next season. You've got West Ham away, you've got Palace at home, Villa away, and Brighton at home. I have no problem with him playing in midfield in those kind of games. But this game, you just knew that this Liverpool midfield were just going to be so overly aggressive, and basically it didn't matter who we had in midfield, they were probably going to dominate. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So Archie Gray was on a complete hiding for nothing being in that team yesterday. Yeah,
and the fact he got hauled off at half-time shows that he was out of his depth, really. I think that's the proper term for it. He was completely out of his depth yesterday. You could see it for that second goal. The way that he had 2 or 3 yards on Gravenberch and he still couldn't get to the ball before him because Gravenberch just had that physical edge on him. And that was the telling moment in the game to show that Gray just can't compete right now, especially against that level of opposition, who are probably the best in the league right now, or who are the best in the league, obviously, especially in midfield. Gravenberch's been brilliant this season. Gray just couldn't compete. So I didn't like watching it. I wouldn't have. I don't think we didn't predict him to start in that position. I don't think it was probably not fair of him to start in that position, I would say as well. But if it's going to lead to, if Ange is going to say he played in that game leading to him getting a run of Premier League games, and that was basically him throwing him in there to get him to basically saying this is going to be the hardest challenge you have, and if you can not get through it, but if you can basically play in that kind of game, then it's only not going to get as tough as that going forward, so it'll be a good setup for it. Then I can maybe understand it a bit more. But if we're going to sit here in the future Premier League games and he's not going to play, then I think you've just basically hung him up to dry for no reason, and I hate that. Absolutely hate that.
Yeah, but look, it was just such a hard watch yesterday. I don't think any player on that pitch for Spurs, substitutes or starters or manager, come out with anything to go on, anything positive, because I think from 1 to 11 every player was absolutely shocking, and I saw players, particularly in that second half, or for pretty much an hour of it, just give up, just completely give up on the pitch. And you can't have that. You've got to have a bit of pride about you playing for that shirt, wearing the badge of Tottenham Hotspur, with so many fans relying on you, fans travelling up and down the country week in, week out, and you just give up on the pitch. And we've seen it so many times over the years under different managers, and it just gets harder and harder to take every single time you watch it. And the only one I felt that didn't give up was Lucas Bergvall. Bergvall in the second half actually was starting to grow into the game, and he was actually putting in so much effort trying to drive the team forward. And how many times have we said it? In these games that we keep losing, Lucas Bergvall is the only one trying to get the ball moving and trying to drive the team up the pitch. A 19-year-old kid. It's madness.
He hasn't been infected for long enough with the Spurs mentality. Yeah. That's the problem. Wait till next season. But yeah, I absolutely agree. It was like they were just waiting for Thursday, essentially, in that second half, and they just wanted that game to be over with as little minimum damage as possible. And they were just waiting to basically concede. They were just, whenever they got the ball, they were just lumping it long. They had no kind of confidence or ability to try and play any sort of football. It was like there was like they just couldn't be bothered to play football because that takes effort, that takes desire, that takes showing for the ball, that takes bravery, and they just basically had no interest in any of those traits. It was like, we're going to get the ball, we're just going to lump it long, I'm going to see if Solanke can hang on to it, and we're just going to wait for the ball to come back to us. And when we get it back, we're just going to lump it long again because they're pressing us. I can't be bothered to basically shield the ball, or I can't be bothered to protect the ball, or I can't bother to show for the ball, I can't bother to make runs, I can't bother to do anything. I'm just going to get the ball and lump it long and just hope for the best and hope we don't concede 7 or 8. And we're lucky we didn't yesterday.
Yeah, we really are lucky. But look, that is it. That's all we're going to say on the matter. Well, not all we're going to say because we've got player ratings now. So let's see.
There's only so many times we could say how bad it. You know what I mean? It's like it was so bad yesterday. It was hard to watch, but it's like I don't know what more we can analyze from that. We can take from that. We can't like. It was a shocking game. We were waiting for Thursday, but I think us fans are waiting for Thursday as well. You know what I mean? Before the game, you said there should not be one player playing who is going to start on Thursday. Yeah. So, like, that's the narrative among the fan base as well. So it's hard to expect anything different.
Yeah, but these guys are getting paid, 50k plus a week to play for Tottenham Hotspur. As much as I didn't want to see anyone playing yesterday that I want to see playing on Thursday, the players on the pitch still need to put in some effort.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That should be the bare minimum. Just put in a bit of effort. Is that all so much to ask?
Shouldn't be.
You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. Anyway, let's move on to the player ratings. Let's start off with Vicario. 3s all round for Vic. Yeah, look, just really hard to watch Vicario at this moment in time. His playing out of the back is nothing short of embarrassing. He keeps playing it towards Liverpool players, flapping at a few crosses as well. I think there was 1 or 2 that he caught, but... from one of the leaders in the group, you just expect a bit more on the pitch from him, and you're just not receiving it at the moment.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the goals. I don't think any of them were really his fault in terms of the goals they scored. Maybe you could argue McAllister's one wasn't right in the corner, but it was still in the roof of the net. It was a great finish. To be fair, Liverpool's finishing was pretty clinical, so I don't think I blame many of the goals, but I think it's just his overall nervousness again. A bit similar to the Chelsea game. Like, I don't think it was his fault that we conceded, but it's just his nervousness and his kind of whenever he gets the ball, the fact that he's being jeered and the fact that the crowd are getting on his back is really affecting him, and it's causing a lot of problems, I think, in the back line as well, and it's causing Tottenham to be continually put under pressure when his distribution is as poor as it was yesterday, and it's something that has been getting worse recently, and hopefully he finds a way to get out of it.
Yeah, going to need it quickly with Thursday coming up. But let's move on to Jed Spence. 4s all round for Jed. Jed hasn't been great over the last month or so, to be honest. And I think yesterday was probably the poorest of the lot. I think in possession he was really bad, and I think Luis Diaz was giving him a really tough time.
Yeah, and I think, and he was also not the only one, but he was guilty of, in that second half, getting the ball and just lumping it long and not being last, basically, with it. Wasn't a great game, not much to say. I just think he was just a bit out of sorts.
Yeah. Kevin Danso up next, 4s all round for Kevin. Not his kind of like usual aggressive self. I think his positional play was pretty much all off yesterday as well. I don't know what it was, just looked a little rusty yesterday, Danso.
Yeah, I think there was one moment he did all right in the second half. He pressed, I think it was Gravenberch, wins the ball really hard at the pitch, but instead of picking out a good passing option, he decides to shoot, and obviously shot from 30 yards and it ends up going wide, and there basically picks the wrong option. It was only one of the moments we went forward in that second half, but it was a difficult day for him. I don't think he was the worst of the bunch, but he just wasn't great in the end. I don't think he dealt with Gakpo or Diaz particularly well. I think, he was allowing too many runs off him. But I thought it was a bit better than his partner.
Davis up next, 3 for Sim, 4 for me. Another one that was pretty poor, to be honest. And he just felt like he was just getting pulled left, right, and centre all the time. Constantly stretched. But what I would say about Davis is that he did make a couple of blocks and interceptions in the box, which looked like certain goals. I guess that's a small positive that you can take from it. But we did concede 5 goals, and he was a big part of that.
Yeah, and also him recently. I know it's not just him, it's the team. But he seems to. I don't like. There's rumours, obviously, of him getting a new contract and stuff. But his last few games he's played for us have been really, really poor. So I don't know where his head's at the moment. But I know in general this season he's been all right when he's been called upon, but definitely recently he seems to have not been able to step in reliably at centre-back. And I think yesterday was another case of it. Liverpool basically just overrunning him, and I just thought he looked a bit all over the place.
Yeah. Next up, Destiny Udogie. Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 3. I think for the fourth goal, he was pretty poor, to be honest. Salah just literally just breezed past him. Did score an own goal as well, which he couldn't have done much about, to be honest. But yeah, there were good moments in there from Destiny, to be honest, because I felt like he was the only one in that back four that was looking to take the game forward a little bit. But the reality is a lot came down that side.
Yeah, I thought first half he was probably our best player, and probably one of the few that deserves a bit of credit with how he played. But that kind of disappeared quite a bit second half and wasn't able to get on the ball that much. And then, as you say, got really exposed for the fourth and fifth goal, where you know what Salah's going to do, and he looked as though he didn't know what. But he looked as though he was bamboozled.
I think Udogie was a culprit of just giving up in that second half. That's what it felt like. It felt like, you know what, I'm going to be in the starting lineup on Thursday. I just need to take it easy a bit here in the second half and just not exert myself and keep my energy levels for Thursday.
Yeah. And look, if we won on Thursday, I'll take it. But yesterday, it was a disgrace.
Archie Gray, Sim gives him a 3. I gave him a 2. Starting in the 6 at Anfield in Liverpool's title-winning game, just completely overawed by the occasion, overawed by the physicality of the game. And yeah, he just looked completely out of his depth. I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty of what went wrong. You all know what went wrong on the pitch for Archie Gray, and it's just wasn't at the levels.
Yeah, I think yesterday was an example of his struggles physically in that position right now as an 18-year-old kid at this level. As much as we've praised him a lot this season, and I think for a player of his age, he's clearly a talent. But right now, when you're asking him to play in that position at Anfield, it was clearly way too hard and way beyond him. And yesterday, unfortunately, he was out of his depth. He was rightly hauled off at half-time. He couldn't compete physically. He wasn't able to show any sort of composure on the ball. He was just a bit all over the place. He couldn't really get close to any of the Liverpool players. I thought Szoboszlai had the freedom of Anfield to do whatever he wanted. And I think Gray struggled to do much yesterday, unfortunately. And it's hard to say that because it's not completely his fault, but that's just the truth. And hopefully he'll learn from it and become a better player from it. I'm sure he will. But yesterday was a tough one for him.
Lucas Bergvall, Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. I did think, like, in the first half, he didn't really show his true self. But in the second half, I did think he was our best player. That's not saying much. But he was the one that was always looking to try and drive the ball forward. He was the one that clearly looked like he didn't give up on the pitch. He was always trying to up on the tempo of the game and get us up the pitch a little bit. But yeah, just clutching really. But yeah, he was. I don't think it was a good or okay performance, but it was just better than the rest.
Yeah, I think first half wasn't as bad as Gray, but also was a bit all over the place. It reminded me of one of Bergvall's earlier season performances in that first half, the way he was just running around aimlessly, not like a bit all over the place, not really disciplined like he has been recently. But I think second half was a bit better from him, and he did show a bit more confidence, and he one of the few who didn't completely give up and wanted to try and get back in the game. But unfortunately, when you're the only one doing it, it's not really going to help much. But yeah, I think didn't save himself, but improved a bit in the second. But I thought first half he was a bit all over the place.
James Maddison up next. Sim gives him a 4. I gave him a 5. I actually thought he started the game well. Obviously, he put the ball in for Dom Solanke, which was a really nice corner, and he was actually putting in some nice set pieces in the early stages of the game. I think there was like 2 or 3 of them that were looking really dangerous. There were a couple of moments where he was able to wriggle away from his player and provide the only bit of spark that we had in the game. But that quickly vanished as the second half wore on, and he got taken off at half time.
Yeah, I thought in the start of the game, he was one of the players looking bright and putting some good deliveries. It was looking like he was going to create things. But as soon as we're talking about 15 minutes here, because as soon as we conceded, it was almost like his head dropped like the rest of the team, and it was like, okay, here we go again, the inevitable happened, and I think he just went missing, he vanished, and we're never to be seen again. Did end up with an assist, but Wasn't that a massive surprise? He got hauled off half-time, maybe with a view of him starting on Thursday. But there you have it. I don't think it wasn't great after the first 15 minutes.
Matisse Tell, Sim gives him a 5. I gave him a 4. It looked like there was a clear kind of target to him, particularly in the opening stages when we were kind of playing okay. But I just felt like he kind of looked threatening without really doing much in that kind of moment. He was getting the ball on the left-hand side. There was one moment as well where I think Brennan puts it across the face goal to him and he gets beaten to it. But yeah, look, he looks slightly threatening without really doing much.
Yeah, I think there were definitely times where Trent was looking worried about him and he was getting to that byline and he was causing problems, but unfortunately there wasn't much at the end of it in terms of real quality. I think he was hampered a bit where not many combinations with his teammates. It looked like when he had options, he always tried to dribble out his way out of trouble and end up losing the ball. And I think second half was completely anonymous and ended up being quite a poor performance. But it started bright and it was looking like maybe he could be a decent game for him, but at the end turned out to be a bit of a poor showing.
Brennan Johnson, 3s all round for Brennan, pretty much had little to no impact in the game. I think one cross, which looked to be fairly dangerous, but apart from that, he was pretty much a ghost.
He was actually probably the most frustrating player because there was a few times we were getting him in behind, but he was constantly offside. Constantly, about 3 or 4 times. We were in good position and he was offside when he shouldn't have been offside. He had loads of space to run into and he just couldn't time his runs at all to right, which is not shouldn't be the case at this level. That was a good ball, to be fair, where Tell nearly got the end of it at the back post. But other than that, he just found himself offside, and you can't do anything if you're constantly in an offside position, and it was really hampering the team. So poor showing.
And finally, of the starting 11, Dominic Solanke, 5s all round for Dom. Obviously gets the goal, puts us ahead in the opening 15 minutes, which was a really nice header. But apart from that, he was pretty much just feeding off scraps, wasn't he? And particularly in the second half, all we were doing is lumping it forward, trying to find him, and we just never found him.
Yeah, I completely agree. Poor from Solanke. Well, I would say it's more poor from the rest of the team, and I think he was very isolated for a lot of the game. And I actually thought in the first 15 minutes he was playing quite well. I thought he was really causing Van Dijk and Konate some issues. He was forcing them into some mistakes. He forced the corner that he scored from with a really nice header. So it looked like, okay, he's really fighting at the moment, but it seems as though when the team dropped and all of a sudden they were just forced to lumping it towards him long, and he was basically isolated by himself up against Van Dijk and Konate for about an hour, and he was struggling and he couldn't really battle as he was in the first 15 minutes. And Van Dijk and Konate, well, it was like a meat and drink for them. It was easy, but I feel for him because I felt like it was him up against their whole back line for a lot of that game, and it was tough for him.
Yeah. Substitutes, Decky came on at half-time for Madders, 3s all round for Decky. I mean, there was one action when he first, in the start of the second half, where Decky tried to drive at the Liverpool team. But apart from that, pretty much didn't see him for the whole second half.
Yeah, there was a couple of moments where he wins it in the middle of the park and you're thinking, okay, he's going to drive it, and then ends up giving the ball away. That's been definitely a problem I've seen with Decky in the last few months. I know he's been injured for the last month, but since he's been off form, it's almost as if he doesn't trust his teammates. He's just hanging on to the ball for so long. He's not releasing it quick enough, and he ends up losing it time and time again. And I think he was guilty of doing that. It's almost as if because he can win the ball back with himself. He's like, I'll win the ball back, so I earn the right to go myself with this ball. And it's like he's just guilty of being selfish, and that's a problem.
He's always done that though. But at the beginning stage of the season, when he was doing that, he had the kind of physicality to actually be able to hold on to the ball, but now it doesn't seem like he does.
He was using I felt like he was using his teammates a lot more at the beginning of the season. He was getting a lot more passes. Now it seems as though he wants to go himself all the time, and it's really frustrating to watch when he's constantly losing it. I think he did have those moments for sure, but it seems as though it's every time now, where before he would definitely, I felt like he would definitely use his teammates a lot more earlier in the season. And he wasn't good, and obviously he had one moment which led to the fourth goal. Again, guilty of it. He gets the ball, drives forward into the box. He has options to his left and to his right. He goes for the shot when there's 3 Liverpool players around him. It gets blocked. It ends up, I think, to Szoboszlai, and they counter and score from it. So, yeah, really frustrating cameo from him.
Pape, who also came on at half-time, Sim gives before, I gave him a 3. Again, nothing in there. nothing in his display from Pape. Plays 45 minutes, and you barely even noticed he was there.
Yeah.
I remember saying to you at one point in the watch long, about 20 minutes into the game, being like, "Oh shit, Pape's playing."
Yeah, I think he had a shot, didn't he, from 30 yards, reminiscent of the shot against Chelsea, which this one was much easily dealt with from Alisson.
Maybe reminiscent of the distance, not reminiscent of the shot.
Yeah, maybe. Other than that, I don't remember anything he really did in that second half. Yeah.
Richarlison up next, threes all round for Rishi. Just the only thing I remember happening with Richarlison is him getting into that little scuff with Harvey Elliott. That's about it. Elliott showed up the 30 to him, which I think was meaning Everton haven't won a trophy in 30 years or something. I don't know what that was, but Richarlison got booked, and that was pretty much all he did.
So our opposition fans are bantering us based not even on our own team. Is that what's happening? Yeah. Only had a little bit. I don't know what the score was when he came on, but he didn't really impact the game.
I'll tell you what the score was when he came on. The score was, who even cares, but the score was 4-1.
4-1.
Odebear came on just a minute after Richarlison. Threes all round, but Odebear, again, had pretty much no impact in the game. So 3.
Yeah. You would have thought in this kind of game, he has a chance to run at players and has a chance to impact the game a bit when he comes on, and he just wasn't able to. It was actually really frustrating. And maybe, look, last few appearances I've seen from him, he's starting to look a bit better on the right-hand side than he is on the left, which is quite interesting. But we'll see what Ange chooses to do on Thursday with him.
It's weird that, isn't it? Because you've got like Jed Spence, who's natural right, but has been looking better on the left. And you've got Odebear, who's a natural left, and he's looking better on the right.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting how they swap positions, it seems.
And finally, Ange Postecoglou, threes all round for Ange. I mean, what can you say? Look, it was clear that the minds were on Thursday a lot more than yesterday, which is obviously the right course of action. He picked a team, including Archie Gray in the 6, which I think was probably the biggest flaw in the lineup yesterday. Having said that, if Basuma was playing in the 6, does it change much? Probably not. All it does is protect Archie Gray a bit more. But look, failed to get a team up for it. The team looking like they're lacking all the fundamentals in the game. Clearly a team that gave up on the day. And look, it all stems back to the manager. Masterminded his 19th loss of the season, which has equalled our worst ever loss tally in the Premier League.
Yep, not much really to add to that. I didn't have a massive problem with the lineup, apart from maybe should have started Gray and Bergvall together. But I think obviously he was always going to rest players in this game. That's what we expected and what we were calling for as well. So we know all eyes are on Thursday, but still, the way we went about this game was disgraceful. The way we were conceding goals and gave up is nothing sort of shocking. But look, he's got to perform on Thursday. We have to perform, I should say, on Thursday. And we have to make all these losses mean something.
Yeah. All right, well, that is our player ratings. Let's move on to see how the internet did react to the game yesterday. And first up, we've got from THFC Kieran's got a screenshot of 2 tweets. One from Invert the Wing that says, "Do Tottenham fans not get bored? After every loss, it's he won't get until Thursday. He does, he wins, and it's back to he deserves this season, and then repeat next weekend."
Seems like we are on that kind of cycle.
It is, but like, can you blame anyone for being in that cycle, to be honest? Because it's just like, it's great seeing the performances on Thursday and the win, well, the Frankfurt game anyway. But every single Premier League game, it's just like, it's so hard to watch. And everyone in the narrative is being like, oh, we don't really care about the Premier League now because of how bad it's been. But as a Spurs fan, you can't help but...
It still hurts.
Yeah, but you can't help but care so much when the game actually comes around.
Yeah, and look, we're football fans, and we want to see our team win regardless of its situation. And we know that whether we won yesterday or not doesn't really make that much of a difference to the grand scheme of things, but it still hurts, and it still definitely hurts to watch our team play like that. And there's always going to be an outpouring of anger when that happens. But at the end of the day, we do have a big European semi-final on Thursday, and all this thing, sack him now, blah, 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 we have to be focused on that game. That's the most important thing.
Dave OC Cop says a number of Tottenham fans stayed behind also to applaud Liverpool during the lap of honour. Credit to them. Yeah, are they sure that's not just the Liverpool fans?
Liverpool fans in Spurs shirts in the away end. Would you have stayed to do the clap the lap of honour if you were
No
there?
chance.
No
Chance.
We're no credit to Liverpool for winning the title.
I mean, look, credit to them. They deserved it. They were the best team in the league this year by far. But I'm not one to stand there and applaud an opposition after thumping Spurs.
That's all we've got to applaud, though, this season away from home, is Liverpool winning the league.
Yeah, and look, I thank them, because if they weren't that good, then Arsenal would have won the league. But the reality is that I ain't applauding any club for going and battering Tottenham. No chance. CFC Janty says, Tottenham are so shit, man. How are you allowing someone to do a meet and greet mid-game? And this is Mo Salah doing that selfie after he scored. Such an embarrassing moment.
I know, literally. Look, he's literally getting the crowd and taking his time to get selfies with the fans. I do think this was, actually looking back, I think this was like a sponsorship thing. Because it was. I know it's a Google Pixel, and I think Liverpool was sponsored by Google Pixel. And if you actually look, I think it's a staff member that gives it to him.
Oh, was it?
So I think this is all pre-planned. I think if he scored, they'll do this. But still, it's just proper taking the piss. Let's be honest, it is.
Yeah, I did see him do a number of selfies like that throughout, not like after the game and the final whistle and stuff, but to do it during the game
I know.
after we've just conceded, it's just embarrassing.
God.
Park Lane Block 40 says, even the balloons on the pitch have a better formation than Postecoglou's Tottenham.
The balloon. Oh God. Yeah. It was the balloons were being popped by Jed Spence.
Yeah.
On the pitch during the game yesterday. Wish we would have just kept them
Spence,
on. Should have delayed.
WhoScored.com says Alexis McAllister made more tackles, which is 6.
I think you missed one.
Did I? Oh, John O'Sullivan says, think Postecoglou played a weak inside today because he wanted to be at Anfield when Liverpool won the Premier League. Respect.
So is that the Liverpool fan in Ange, you reckon?
Don't know about that. He
wanted to be there when Liverpool won the league.
He says he's not focused on boyhood crushes anymore.
Yeah. Maybe not then, maybe not.
Who Scored says Alexis McAllister made more tackles, which is 6, than Tottenham, which was 4 in the first half.
That's just the most telling
mad,
stat.
Isn't it?
That just
One
goes
player.
to show like how lagging behind, like physically and also just like physically and mentally, the team were yesterday. That one player made more tackles than our whole team. We just couldn't get near them.
Yeah.
That's just emblematic. That's just like symptomatic.
Didn't even
of
try
it.
to get near them. Coptastic Neil says, mate.
Oh, for God! Hands leading the celebrations. For God's sake.
No context Tottenham saying most goals against an opponent in a season in all competitions. Spurs have equalled Rotherham's record from 1895-96 season. 15 goals conceded to Liverpool this season.
Is this any team or is it just Liverpool? This isn't any team, right? Or is it just Liverpool?
Most goals against an opponent.
Is it Liverpool's? Is it Liverpool's most games or anyone's most goals?
It probably makes sense to be Liverpool.
Okay. But still, yeah.
Because it's got a Liverpool badge there, so
yeah,
I'm guessing Liverpool.
I'm guessing it's just Liverpool.
Still, record breakers again, ole.
Oh, I don't know how many times they played Rotherham that year. We've played them 4 times, right, this season. But, yeah, still not great.
Sports Week says, the Monday morning content you want to see. Harvey Elliott gesturing 30 to Richarlison. For a number of years, Everton have gone without a trophy. Richarlison didn't seem to like that.
He's a little shit, isn't he, Harvey Elliott?
And then
he's always been after what he did with the Harry Kane thing.
Oh yeah,
that was him.
Yeah. I even forgot about that. I should never forget about that.
Yeah.
This next one is Harvey Elliott fully rattled Richarlison because Richarlison actually commented on a random fan that was talking about this on, I think, TikTok or Instagram, and he says he wants to reach 30 goals in his career, I think. I mean, even Richarlison's commenting on it after the game on social media.
Rishi is rattled hard. He's searching it out. Bloody hell. Richarlison, Harvey Elliott, so I can comment on it.
Madness, isn't it?
God.
Holly Agam,
this isn't time to be like biting back. It's time to. We've just been battered 5-1 and we're 16th in the league. Just have some shame and
stay humble,
move on
mate.
from it. Maybe comment when we've done something in Europa, but like just after that, it's like, what are you buying back to? Look at where we are. Look what he's been. He's been injured. Like, just concentrate on getting goals yourself, Rishi.
Holly Agambar says 6 years and waiting, and that is in response to on the 1st of June 2019, Tottenham put out a post after the Champions League final saying the journey was incredible, the memories will live with us forever. It wasn't to be this time, but we're only just getting started. Thank you for your incredible support. We hope you're as proud as we are. We are Tottenham. We will be back. And it's pretty much only been downhill since then.
Yeah, we're getting close to a decade. Getting close to it. It's gonna, but before we know it, it's going to be a decade gone, that Champions League final.
So many wasted years, man. Squawk is saying Tottenham's most defeats in a Premier League season. Now this season does equal 2003-2004 and 93-94. That is just awful, man. Sky Sports News say that Aston Villa have written to the Premier League to object to a request from Tottenham to move their fixture on Sunday, May the 18th. Sky Sports News understands. So Villa have...
Yeah, bastards. I mean, I got no reason, do they, to accept it?
No, why should they?
Yeah, but still hurts.
They didn't want to do us a favour?
No. I guess from their point of view as well, it makes their schedule a bit tighter, I think. And it's not like they've got nothing to play for. Yeah,
they got Champions League football to worry about.
Yeah, so I can't understand it, but still, like, when you apparently Bilbao are going to be getting, if they make it to the final, their fixture's going to be moved because the league is helping them. But for us, nothing could be done.
The Premier League never help any of their clubs, ever. Every other league helps them. Bodo Glimt have a free week before the second leg. As you say, Bilbao, their league are making kind of arrangements, so they'll have a clear week before the final. But Premier League don't want to do nothing like that.
And also from Villa's point of view as well, they know if they reject this and force Tottenham to play 3 days before the final, that we're just going to put our proper second string.
And well, the reality is we'll probably put on a proper second string anyway, but even more so if they don't accept it, yeah, for sure. Boxing on TNT saying after his opponent walked out to North London forever, Spurs fan Vidal Riley celebrated his win with Glory, Glory Tottenham Hotspur ringing out at the Tottenham Hotspur
how you respond.
Stadium.
Come on, Vidal. Big up.
In his Tottenham colour shorts as well. Big up to Vidal and putting that Guna right in his place.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Something to put a smile on your face at least.
Eurofoot says Tottenham have lost 19 games in the league this season. Only 3 relegated sides have more losses this season. Pfft, disgusting. Out of context, Tottenham saying at the start of the season, at the end of the season.
That's literally all of us. That's literally what we go through. Drives you mad, this football club.
THFC_MB saying it's great to be in the Tottenham away end where there's only 20% Tottenham fans.
Is there a picture of that, or is it just a picture of the...
No, this is just the guy that was in the away end.
All right, so you can't really see it, but... Well, I don't know.
It's just madness, like how fans can do that.
Well, actually, if you go to the comments, there's an interesting picture there. Not that one. This one here, yeah. He said they claim this is a guy sitting in front of him, he claims.
Not even trying to hide it.
Not even trying to... No shame, no shame. Guy, the Liverpool badge on it as his home screen. I'm pretty sure he ain't a Spurs fan.
The 44 says, did Liverpool or Everton win the league? In the next one, look at this one. There was just blue flares going off everywhere yesterday. I did make me chuckle.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Honest.
That story is brilliant.
There was a story like this Everton fan took 4 weeks to remove all the blue labels from flares and stick red labels on them. And a lot of Liverpool fans obviously bought them, and there were just blue flares going off everywhere yesterday.
Fantastic. Absolutely phenomenal shithousery. Got to rate that.
Lucan says, absolute peak gif, a literal Spurs player popping a balloon of a trophy with elite camera work. Couldn't write it. That said, this year we get our trophy.
Yeah, there's Jed having none of it.
LJ1882 saying, worst season in 30 years, and if we lose the next game, it'll be the worst season in 75 years. And what if we lose more than the next game? How many years will it be then?
Will be our worst ever, I'm guessing.
Jesus Christ. How is it possible that we're living through a moment where we're going to go through our worst season ever? It's just madness. Coy's Jordan says Ange Ball with a lot of L's at the end. 19 to be precise.
That 19 L's in there.
I don't know. I haven't counted them, but it should be.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And yeah, that is it. That is it from how the internet did react to the game yesterday. Just going through the motions here as a Spurs fan, and hopefully we can put that game behind us now and focus on Thursday and with a positive result. But we've got a bit to talk about today. We've got a Tottenham update. But with first and foremost, I want to get into this Matt Law article from earlier today, which is titled Tottenham Face Sell to Buy Threats This Summer. And he did an article and he says that Tottenham are facing the prospect of having to sell to buy this summer, despite the fact the club could spend over £200 million without breaching PSR rules. Without a significant injection of cash from owners ENIC, Spurs are facing a tough summer of trading, which is threatening to severely affect the club's head coach, whether that be Ange Postecoglou or not. Spurs are 16th in the table and have equalled their record 19 Premier League defeats in a single season, with their latest loss coming at Anfield. Champions League qualification, though, winning the Europa League would improve the situation, but Atletico Madrid target Cuti Romero, or at least one other star, may have to be sold to generate transfer funds. Tottenham were one of the Premier League's highest spenders last summer, and according to the last set of accounts that were first broken down by The Athletic, the club's net transfer debt, money owed to Spurs minus money they are still to pay out, was £279.3 million. That puts the club and those responsible for trying to improve the squad in an incredibly difficult position, particularly coupled with Tottenham's wage structure, which was one of the strictest in Europe. A well-placed source confirmed to the Telegraph Sport that the club will most likely have to sell to buy this summer, which will raise the question marks over the futures of a host of players, including Romero, Richarlison and Yves Bissouma. ENIC provided £122.1 million in owner funding since their 2001 takeover to June 2024, the equivalent of just £5.3 million per season, the majority of which came from a £97.5 million share issue in May 2022, which has initially been announced as being worth up to £150 million. Since ENIC's £97.5 million share issue, a total of 13 English clubs received more owner funding, which the owners of Tottenham's rivals Aston Villa have poured over £600 million into the club since their takeover in 2018. ENIC did invest £35 million into the club in January, but under fire chairman Daniel Levy made it clear that Tottenham will not spend money they do not have, despite their ability to do so within the PSR guidelines. In the last set of accounts, Levy said, "We cannot spend what we do not have, and we will not compromise the financial stability of this club. Indeed, our off-pitch revenues has significantly supplemented the lower football revenues this year, testament to our diversified income strategy." Levy then added, "Since opening our new stadium in 2019, we have invested over £700 million net in player acquisitions. Recruitment remains on a key focus, and we must ensure that we make smart purchases within our financial means. I often read calls for us to spend more, given that we are ranked as the 9th richest club in the world. However, a closer examination of today's financial figures reveals that such spending must be sustainable in the long term and within our operating revenues. Our capacity to generate recurring revenues determines our spending power." Tottenham supporters will hold their fourth major protest against ENIC and Levy at the club's next home league game against Crystal Palace on May the 11th. Change for Tottenham have been organised another pre-match march, and a group are urging supporters to take part in an in-stadium demonstration. Change for Tottenham want supporters to wear yellow to the game and delay returning to their seats at the start of the second half to visibly signal their dissatisfaction at the running of the club. I mean, if that doesn't tell you that Spurs need change to really kick on, I don't know what will.
God. The dreaded words, sell to buy, which all Tottenham fans shudder to hear, but also inevitably expect when things like this happen. We've always been that club for many, many years. I know we have invested a lot since going into the stadium. And I'm guessing, obviously, it is reliant on maybe their stance will be different when it comes to if we get Champions League football in the summer rather than if not. I'm guessing that article is pertaining if we don't make Champions League football, which is obviously right now in the balance.
It says if we make, well, the article did say, it mentioned Champions League football, and it says if we make Champions League, it'll be a little bit better, but we'll probably still need to sell to buy.
Which shouldn't be the case when we have a lot of wiggle room with PSL and we make the revenues that we do. Like, we shouldn't have to sell to buy. But to be fair, the article says we might have to consider selling the likes of Richarlison and Basuma, but like that I thought was going to be the case anyway, regardless of any situation. They were on the chopping block probably in the summer anyway. But if they think selling Basuma and Richarlison is going to get the funds to invest, like how much are we realistically going to get for those two? Like, we're not going to probably get, we're probably going to get enough money for maybe one player, like with that. So I think the thought, I mean, I guess you put Romero on top of that, potentially 60 million there as well. Maybe there's a couple of players there, but the thinking that we're going to raise enough money through selling players, especially when Levy is very kind of strict on how much he gets, if we're thinking we're going to raise enough to invest adequately in the summer to change our fortunes, I think he's going to have to invest. And as well, he makes a good point. In a couple of years ago, they announced 150 million has been invested into the team or into the club from ENIC, and we've only seen 97 million of that. So where's the other 53 million? Where is it? Where have they put it?
Yeah,
they've announced it, but only 97 million has been put in.
Probably
so where's the
spent
other
on a hotel
53?
or something. That's probably where it's gone. It's not going into the football club, that's for sure. But it's an absolute joke that we're sitting here, however many years after the stadium opening, saying that this stadium was supposed to propel us onto a new kind of level, and we're still sitting here saying that we need to sell to buy. If that article doesn't tell you that we need new owners to really kick on as a football club, I don't know what will. Like, it's clear to see that with the way this club is running and the way we're going and the state of the squad and the state of the club and everything like that, just about to witness the worst ever Premier League campaign in our lifetimes and in many people's lifetimes, probably ever, at this football club has ever since the inception in 1882, then I don't know what will tell you that we don't need new owners to really kick on as a football club, because these owners are not willing to put in the money and the investment that we need to go and fight for top four, to go and fight for league titles, to go and be where we want to be as a fan base. It's just clear to see.
And the football's not their priority. It's not. They're not geared to maximising the football output. That's not where their priority lies. Their priority lies in getting all these external projects underway with the hotel and all the events at the stadium and the F1 and all these different things. That's where they're concentrating on. And whatever happens with the football at the moment, it doesn't even matter as much, because with all the events happening, all these different things, the necessity for Champions League football and dining at the top table and even winning trophies diminishes with each kind of project they embark on. And when this hotel is up and running and the money they're going to make from this hotel, it's even going to lessen the need for Tottenham to require Tottenham to be successful on the football pitch from a financial point of view. Other clubs, they're geared towards getting the best out of the football, because they know if their team's successful, that gives them more money, and that's what drives them a lot of the time. And it's not like a lot of teams aren't financially prudent, but they basically require the football team to be successful for them to work more financially. But for us, because that's not our focus, that's why the football isn't a priority, because we've got all these things. And in a way, it's a good thing, because your financial status isn't dependent on how well your football team does. But as a byproduct of that, it's meant that we're not solely focused on improving the football team and making the best of our football team as a club. And so we're in this catch-22 where we're so focused on making the team sustainable that the fans who are watching this football week in, week out and really care, that's where our focus is. We're being put as second. Our wants and needs aren't cared about, and we're only customers. All we care about is how much money they can extract from us, and in terms of the product they're putting out for us, that's secondary.
Yeah, and it's really hard to take as as people that live and breathe Tottenham, a lot of people out there watching this will be the exact same. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people are exactly the same, you know. And to see the club just put football just on a back burner, really, and not give it their all to try and make Tottenham the best it can be on the pitch, and basically to leave no stone unturned and no expense spared in anything but the football side, it's just like, it makes you at a loss of what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? We're just watching our team get battered week in, week out. Like I said, about to have the worst season that we've had on record. And, you know, you're getting the best talent that you can possibly find in the boxing ring, in the concert halls, and all that kind of stuff. And the football stuff is just complete secondary stuff to them. And I just don't know which way we can turn. Like, what are we supposed to do as fans to try and make this better? We need new owners that are actually going to come in and put football at the forefront of this football club. And even having said that, like, what owners are going to come in and put football at the forefront of this football club as well? That's another question. Like, it's so hard to think about, because when you've got this club that is just shitting out money on the other side of it, what owner in their right mind, unless you really love the club and really love Tottenham Hotspur, what owner is going to come in and not focus on that side?
Unless it's a state. That's the only thing. If it's a state where they don't really care about the money and they're just using it as a plaything. But do we really want those kind of owners as well? I guess that's what we're calling for, I guess, if that's the direction you want to go in. But those type of owners come with their own set of problems, you know, in terms of, you know, morality and all these different things, and how they treat the club. And so it's difficult to see where the future holds. And as well, it's like a weird thing in with this end of the season. Obviously, as you say, we're going to most likely have our worst season in the Premier League. Well, we are definitely going to have our worst season in the Premier League in the history. But if we win that Europa League and we get Champions League football, it's like the club get to have their cake and eat it as well, in a way, because they get to run it as they have. But they've kind of got this get out of jail free card where they've basically slashed the wage bill. They've invested in youth, and they've got the consequences in the league with where we're finishing. And also they've neglected parts of the squad this summer, you know, the big holes. But if we win that Europa League, it's almost like, but we're still going to get that Champions League money, and also they could offer us some sort of success because we've got a trophy which all the fans have been claiming for, and all of a sudden they get this get out of jail free card if we win that Europa League, but it's a weird thing because obviously that's what we want.
I think it's a get out of jail free in the extremely short term. But if ENIC are planning to be here for the long term still, and you know they're not looking to sell the club and stuff like that, like it's always going to revert back to, you know, the problems that they have and the problems that they're giving this football club. So I think,
I'm saying it just puts off that conversation, doesn't it?
I think, yeah, I mean, maybe for some people, but I think for people like me or maybe other people, I still think like they're not going to be able to pull the wool over kind of people's eyes just by winning a trophy, in my opinion. It's going to be a great day, and we're gonna remember that day for the rest of our lives, probably winning a European trophy if that does happen. But I still think even with winning that European trophy and getting back in the Champions League, people should not kind of go off that path, because it's clear to see we ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
But imagine winning a trophy, then trying to organise another protest after winning that trophy, like on game. I understand maybe like a few games into the season, maybe if we've had a really bad start, people will get back on board. But like I say, like right at the beginning of the season, after we're coming into the season as Europa League champions and back in Champions League, I'm trying to organise a protest against the board off the back of that. It'll be difficult, probably.
Yeah, but let's be real. Like that trophy win is going to be, you know, it's not because of the great work that Daniel Levy is doing. It's kind of like fallen on it kind of thing. It's not. I don't think it's been anything to do with the way they've been running the club.
That's fair enough, and that's fair. I'm not saying you're wrong, but that's for sure how they'll spin it.
Yeah, they can spin it how they want, but I trust in fans not to get kind of, you know, sucked into that. And I think even after winning a trophy, yeah, maybe leave it a couple of weeks, a couple of months, but they should definitely get back on the bandwagon and keep protesting. And that brings it to the point of change the Spurs and the great work that they are doing. And a big protest is planned for the Crystal Palace game. And I think if you feel that way inclined and you haven't already, then get on board with them, because they're doing some great work. And I'll be there yet again at the protest against Crystal Palace. So get involved, people. So that's just the sad state of affairs that this club is in. And we're going to move on and talk about the Tottenham update. And first and foremost, injury news as relayed by Ange Postecoglou in the post-match yesterday. First of all, on Son, he said it'll be touch and go for Thursday. He'll try hard. He's not ready just yet, but he's going to be trying hard for the game, and he'll probably and most likely be ready for the second game.
Yeah, let's hope so, because if we are to have a serious kind of go at this trophy, and let's say we do win it, I really would love Son to be at the forefront of it and to be one of the players who, like, obviously, look, it doesn't really matter if he scores the win or not, but if he's really involved and he does is involved in us winning that trophy, it'll mean so much more, I feel like, especially if he is going to be leaving in the near future, because he's given so much his football club. I'd love him to get the flowers for winning that trophy. But look, we know he hasn't been in the best form. If he's obviously not part of the team that does win, it'll be unfortunate, but it is what it is. But I really hope he gets back fit in time to be a big part of this European journey, and I really hope he's at the forefront of it, because he's our captain at the end of the day, and we all know that if anything, having Son captain, lifting the trophy when we win it would be so special. And I'm sure obviously he'll lift it anyway, regardless if he's fit enough for the final or not. But just having him be involved in those fixtures and having him play a big part in it would mean so much more.
Yeah. And on Bentancur, obviously he was left out the squad at Liverpool. He said he's fine, a bit like Destiny last week. He's played a lot recently, and we felt like he would benefit from a weekend off. So that's positive.
Yeah, and it did Doggy quite well, didn't it, when he played the following game. So let's hope Bentancur comes in similar fashion and in good form.
And looking ahead to the Bodo game, there's been some interesting developments on the Bodo side. They are missing some very key players going into the first leg. And journalist Sam C says that Bodo have been seriously damaged ahead of the first leg against Tottenham, with 3 players suspended and 2 new injuries over the weekend. Patrick Berg. So I was actually speaking to a fan who's a big Bodo fan and a Spurs fan as well. But obviously he does favour Bodo over Spurs. But he says players Patrick Berg and Hakan Ivan are 2 of the most important players that Bodo do have, and they are both out for the game. And other important players are suspended, along with Andreas Helmerson, who's the striker, but he is mostly a substitute, and 2 others are most likely to be out from the first 11. And he's saying that this should be a massive advantage for Spurs going into this first leg. And also on top of that, which is actually just completely separate, due to the success that Bodo have had over the last kind of year, they've actually played a competitive match for the last 13 months, which is mad. So they haven't really had the kind of summer break. They've all been together because like their league campaign have only just started over the last 3 weeks. But by the end of the season, they're going to have played competitive matches for 22 months straight. How mad is that?
That's crazy. But obviously, when they're playing in Europa League, it's not like they're playing every week. So they've got like 2 games in a month or something.
Yeah.
So, look, that's not exactly the most taxing.
You've still got to train, though, don't you?
Yeah, I guess that's true. And they say I haven't had a break, which is pretty crazy and probably drives you mad not having a holiday. I'm sure they've been able to squeeze something in, some sort of break. But yeah, it's a crazy development. But in terms of, so they picked up, I heard some injuries from a centre-back, you're saying, yesterday.
Centre-back and a central midfielder.
So how many players are we saying they're missing from their starting 11?
I think that they're saying they're missing about 3 or 4.
3 or 4. So that's
two of the players that are missing apparently are the two most important players for them.
So look, we've got a massive opportunity on Thursday. If we can just put this tie to bed, make it beyond all doubt. Not to say if we do win and still leave it open, we should be going to that second leg, depressed or anything, because we still can go there and do something. But we've just got to make sure that we don't, like the Frankfurt game, leave it as open as it. I know we went to Frankfurt and we won, and fair play to the team, and it was great showing away. But Bodo is going to be an even tougher, different kettle of fish, different circumstances, especially with the turf that we know we've struggled on AstroTurf this season. So it's a massive opportunity on Thursday to put this tie to bed, take a commanding lead, because they just don't have a great away record. That's the truth. They're very much beatable when on our home turf. We've got the quality, we've got the players fit as well. We can really just put them under a lot of pressure. And we could take the tie beyond them. That is possible on Thursday. So if we can do that, that'd be massive.
Yeah, I mean, with these players out, you have to do your best to put that game beyond all doubt in the first leg, man. You just have to. Like, you're looking at Bodo, and no disrespect to Bodo, I rate them highly, and I've been saying even before we got drawn to them, don't disrespect them, because they're a very good team on their day, and they can mix it with the best in this competition for sure. But with those players out, we have to make the most out of it on Thursday. Mm-hmm. We have to. Let's talk about this Villa situation now, because Spurs put out something on the website saying a statement saying that we'd like to inform supporters that we are in discussions with the Premier League regarding a change in date for our away match against Aston Villa, currently scheduled for Sunday, May the 18th. Further information surrounding this fixture will be announced in due course. And then today...
Just on that statement, a lot of fans are saying, is it a bit too presumptuous to put a statement out like that?
Yeah, I don't know why they put a statement out, to be honest. Surely they could just do it behind closed doors.
They could, but on the flip side, a lot of fans are actually applauding it, saying that's actually communicating ahead of time, when beforehand they're not very good at doing that. So you can look at it both ways.
They're not saying like when they're trying to get it changed to or anything. They're just saying we're trying to get it changed.
Yeah, but at least they're keeping fans informed every step, potentially. I guess that you could say that's a good thing. But on the flip side, if we lose, that statement's going to look so like an egg on their face. Yeah,
it's pretty much similar to the whole thing when Arsenal were getting ready for their parade after the season for winning the league.
Yeah, true.
But anyway, I don't have too much of a problem with it. And then The Athletic today saying that Villa are objecting to the Premier League over a potential scheduling change for their fixture against Tottenham. The club fear that it could disrupt preparations for a defining set of fixtures in Villa's pursuit of European qualification. And journalist John Townley also said that Villa have written to the Premier League to emphatically reject Tottenham's request of bringing forward their fixture at Villa Park next month. And he understands Tottenham wanted to play that fixture on Thursday, May the 15th, to allow more time to prepare for the possible Europa League final.
Yeah, look, Villa have got no obligation to help us. That's the reality. And in fact, if it advantages them in every aspect to not accept this fixture change, because they'll have more time in between games. Otherwise, they're only going to have, I think, 5-day break instead of a 7-day break. Also means that Tottenham are more likely for them to either be distracted by the final or play a weakened team. So the higher likelihood that Tottenham do that, the more likely Villa win. So they've also a reason not for them to change. So there's no real reason for them to accept it and go along with it. And so I think if I was in Villa's position, I'll probably do the same.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I can't really add much more than that. But
it's one thing if they had nothing to fight for as well. Maybe
you're saying
wouldn't. They probably still wouldn't, but they obviously got Champions League football to think about, and they're in a fight for their lives. It's very close up there. Every point counts, so they're not gonna basically not take an advantage when they can get one at this point.
All right, well, let's move on and talk about specific players, starting off with Cuti Romero. Matti Moretto says that Romero has already said yes to joining Atletico Madrid. However, the operation won't be easy because Spurs' valuation of their vice-captain is very high. Romero absolutely focused on Spurs' upcoming games, but the idea of being coached by Simeone fascinates him a lot. Ben Jacobs says that Atletico Madrid only want to pay 40 million euros for defender Cuti Romero, and Tom Allnut says that Tottenham want at least 60 million pounds for Cuti Romero.
Yeah, there's no chance we accept 40 million
euros.
No chance. Yeah, no.
That's like 35 million pounds.
That's like 10 million less than what we paid for him. So no chance that happens. Look, I do think this deal was definitely in the works. 100%. I wouldn't be surprised if Romero's already given his verbal agreement to Atletico, saying yes, I'm very interested in joining you. I want this prop move and stuff like that. I think 60 million's probably more around the figure. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 60 million plus add-ons, plus some like 10 million add-ons or something like that. That's probably what I think Tottenham will be looking for. I'm sure there'll be a big negotiation. I'm sure this might be a protracted transfer. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those ones where you hear a lot about it in June, July, and it only gets done in August kind of thing.
100%.
But I think this one is definitely on, is heating up, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it will happen in the end, but you just know that Levy is going to make it as painful as possible for the hierarchy of Atletico Madrid. And I completely agree. I think this is probably going to go down to the wire. I think it will happen, but I think it will go down to the wire.
I hope it's done before the start of the season, because going to the start of the season, like with this hang over our heads, is just not something you'd rather have it all planned out. But
like, look at the Harry Kane one, for instance. You know what I mean? Like Harry Kane, what was it done like?
Day before the season. Yeah, the eve of the season. Although it didn't really hurt our start to the season.
It didn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is not too dissimilar to that.
Yeah.
Fabrizio Romano talking about Mark Gehi, and he says Tottenham do remain keen on Gehi from Crystal Palace. Chelsea and Newcastle are also interested. It's possible that Gehi leaves Crystal Palace on a free transfer in 2026 if a deal can't be agreed this summer. So if that is true, then Palace will probably want to do all they can to get some money from this summer.
Yeah, and they're the type of club who usually, if there's good offers, they're more than willing to take money and reinvest it, and I think they've shown to do that. So I think if Guehi's not going to sign a contract, they have to be open to offers.
The thing is, though, I'm looking at the centre-back options for Spurs, right, going into next season. Let's take Coutinho Romero out of it. So you've got Van de Ven, you've got Ben Davis, who's going to be here next season. You've got Vuskovic, who's coming in. You've got Ashley Phillips, who's coming back. You've got Danso, and you've got Dragoshin. We're all assuming that Vuskovic is going to come in to the first team next season. Ashley Phillips has had another great season, even better than probably what he's shown in the past. What's going to happen with him next season? Is he going to go out on loan again? Or has he shown enough to be part of the first team next season? Dragoshin coming back from his ACL, probably not till December. Like, is there even space for us to sign another centre-back?
Yeah.
Like, with all these players coming in?
For me, I would say there is, but if the club aren't smart, then maybe not. If they are going to keep Davis around, and they are going to rely on Dragoshin, even though he's got an ACL, and they are going to keep Phillips around, then no. But I don't think they should. I think, for me, I think we should sell Davis. I think his time's been, I think, great servant, but he's just not fit for purpose anymore, in my opinion. I think he shouldn't be relied upon. Dragoshin, look, he's not going to be fit till January, and even then, are we going to see the best of him next season? He's going to take a while to recover, so I don't even think he should be considered an option next season. We know Romero's probably leaving. Vuskovic is there, but he's 18. Phillips probably could do with another loan deal, I would say. He's still 19 or 20, so I mean, you could even say Vuskovic potentially could do with another loan deal, but if he is going to be part of the team, that leaves you, for me, with Danso, Van de Ven, and probably Vuskovic as the ones I would rely on. And for sure, with that, I would want another centre-back.
I was actually speaking to this Croatian guy the other day in a really random interaction, and it turned out that this guy's uncle actually coaches Vuskovic at youth team level for Croatia. And he was telling me that the uncle was saying that there are still like a lot of key parts on his game that this guy needs to work on to play first team football in the Premier League.
He's 18.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not fair enough. It's completely fair enough. But he thinks that the best course of action is probably another loan next season where he's playing week in, week out at a higher level than what he's doing now. And, you know, we're all thinking like with what he's showing in Belgium is obviously brilliant, that he will be coming into the first team next season, but probably for his development, the best course of action would be to loan him out again.
That's fine. And if that's his coach saying that, then it's probably quite accurate information. So then if that's the case, another loan deal. So then we need two centre-backs.
Next up, Court of Side reporting that Forest, Villa, Newcastle and Tottenham all interested in signing Jack Grealish this summer. Man City are willing to sell for around £40 million. I mean, the price isn't the issue here. The wages is probably the issue. And I think probably a team like Aston Villa will, if they're not going to sign Rashford again, they clearly see they're willing to pay those kind of wages. Newcastle would probably be willing to pay those kind of wages. Forest, would they? I'm not so sure. But Tottenham definitely won't be.
Only maybe a loan deal. I don't think we'll pay 40 million and then those wages on top of that. I think maybe if you would say take him on a season-long loan, maybe. I don't think any of those teams would pay 40 million and those wages, to be honest, unless he's willing to take a massive wage cut. So I reckon Grealish will leave on loan if he does leave, in my opinion.
And last but not least, RMC Sport reporting that Newcastle, Man United, Tottenham, Chelsea, West Ham and Liverpool are all interested in signing Jonathan David this summer. Marseille are also trying to persuade the player to stay in France. Obviously, he is on a free transfer in the summer. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
I also read a report that Inter are in for him, and I think that's such an Inter signing. David on a free transfer. Like, that is so typical Inter Milan.
But, I mean, don't they have, like, enough strikers into Milan?
They've got Taremi, Thuram and Martinez and Arnautovic, but maybe Arnautovic is leaving. I don't know what's going on with Taremi.
Yeah.
If they can replace them
I'm
with
David, though, like, I want to go somewhere, play week in, week out. You know what I mean? They got Lautaro Martinez, club captain there, starting up front with a Marcus Thuram as well, who's been brilliant this season.
But I also think that formation's perfect for him, the way they play.
Probably, but will he get enough game time with those players there?
Yeah, for sure. They rotate a lot. They're always rotating, and they're in the Champions League. They'll be fighting for the league. He'll get plenty of game time, in my opinion. But in terms of the Premier League, obviously, I would like him to come to Spurs. It's one of those where, unless we're in the Champions League, I don't see us really being in the running. But if we do win that Europa League, maybe we could convince him, especially with Charleston about to leave, probably.
Yeah, but I mean, if clubs like Chelsea and Liverpool are in for him, if Isaac's going to leave Newcastle this summer, they become a serious prospect for him.
Isaac, he would be perfect for Newcastle if Isaac leaves.
What I mean?
Yeah.
So I think there are clubs that in England that are way ahead of us in the pecking order.
I think Isaac stays another year, though.
You reckon at Lille?
Yeah. Isaac.
Oh, Isaac stays another year.
I think Isaac stays another year at Newcastle. I think Chelsea could be an option. And Liverpool are probably going to be looking for a striker as well.
Yeah, because Darwin's going to leave this summer probably.
And they don't really have a proper number 9.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if he goes to Liverpool, I think he'll play a lot. A hell of a lot. So anyway, that is your Tottenham update for today. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And we're going to finish off on Review the Prem, where we're going to go through each and every Premier League outcome from the weekend and react to our predictions as well, where me and Sim are going head-to-head in the Predict the Prem, which is 319 to Sim, 349 to me. And the way it works is 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And the star man, once you pick that man, you can't pick them again for the rest of the season. 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. Starting off at Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea beat Everton 1-0. Sim went for 0-0. I went for 1-1. So obviously it was going to be 1-0 to Chelsea.
Of course.
And look, ready for Chelsea. We both predicted them not to win. And that's 2 back-to-back wins in 2 really hard games.
Yeah, and they got the win over the line, which is they needed at this point. Again, not the most impressive display, but probably just about deserved it. And against an Everton team who are tough to beat, you got to say fair play to them. And it's 3 points they desperately needed in this Champions League race. But tougher tests are to come, and it's still extremely tight. Only 3 points off 7th, so they can't really take their foot off the gas right now. But in terms of these last 2 games, they had to win them, and impressive to win at Fulham away, especially 1-0 down. Got the win against Everton. They do have Liverpool in between 2 games, 2 semi-finals against Jugard, and then they also got Newcastle, which is a massive crunch game, and they've got United and Forest. So some very tough games for Chelsea to down the end of the season, but they've put themselves in a decent position to get that 5th spot.
To be fair, though, that Liverpool game after the weekend has become a hell of a lot easier now. Now they've nothing to play for. It
is, but it'll be interesting how Chelsea approach it, because in the previous game against Legia, he didn't rest players. He played a full-strength team. So if he does that again and then plays against Liverpool, wherever state Liverpool, and it's still a tough game, it's still Liverpool.
Yeah.
And they've got nothing else to play for. So, as much as they're probably taking their foot off the gas, it's not like they're not focusing on any other game. It's the only game they're focusing on.
True. Let's move on to Brighton 3, West Ham 2. Both of us get a point for this one. We both predicted 2-1 to Brighton. And West Ham went 2-1 up with 7 minutes to go. And quite unbelievably, Mitoma scores in the 89th minute, and Baleba scored an absolute screamer in stoppage time. Which, if you're Graham Potter, if you're a West Ham fan, you must be thinking, when the hell are we going to get 3 points over the line? You go 2-1 up away at Brighton with 7 minutes left to play. You're thinking, West Ham are on to 3 points. But what an almighty collapse that was.
And it was almost a perfect away performance, because they kept it tight. They found a couple of moments, and it was a brilliant goal right at the end for Souček, thinking great away win, away at Brighton, not easy to do. But they just collapsed right at the end. Poor defending from Mitoma's goal, and then Baleba, what a goal there was from him, Baleba, to score from 30 yards. Fair play to him. Brilliant way to win it. But Potter in his press conference was
He went mad,
absolutely
didn't he?
tearing his hair out. He was asked if he's frustrated. He was like, "What do you mean am I frustrated? I'm also sitting here. I'm human too. Of course I'm frustrated watching that game." He's like, "I'm sick of talking about positives. I'm sick of talking about all these things.
If you want me to swear, I'll swear."
Yeah, and he's really clearly he's getting very frustrated with what's going on at West Ham and the results they're getting and stuff like that. Understandably so, because just continually losing games and all dropping points, and he's obviously taken the brunt of it, and things just haven't really gone to plan since he's taken over at West Ham, to be honest. Hasn't really made the change that he wanted it to be fair. So he's getting very frustrated, and especially in this kind of game when they've got the lead, you thought, wow, this is he's masterminded a brilliant win away at Brighton, and they couldn't even hang on to it for 7 minutes. Even a draw, they couldn't even hang on to a draw. So he's got to be tearing his hair out. But Brighton stopping the rot with that win, just about getting over the line.
Yeah, I don't think it will mean much for Brighton. They are sitting 9th in the league, aren't they? 6 points away from Aston Villa in 7th, but could they be getting like Europa, Conference League or something? Where would Conference League be? Because it might be lower than 7th.
Well, it depends if City win if Palace win the FA Cup, they get it. But if City win the FA Cup, it goes down to 8th.
And
I
if
think.
Spurs or United win the Europa League?
And if Spurs or United win does that make a difference?
No, it doesn't actually, because they get Champions League spot.
No, so I think they'll have to finish 8th if City win the FA Cup. So can they finish 8th?
Yeah, they can. They're level of points with Fulham.
Yeah, so there is a battle for 8th, which, City win the FA Cup is not unlikely, is it? So, I think 8th place is a good shout.
I guess there is stuff to play for then for Brighton still. Yeah. Next up, Newcastle against Ipswich. Finished 3-0 to Newcastle on the day. Sim went for 3-0, so he gets a 5 points. I went for 4-1. And, yeah, look, it was kind of the game you expected. Ipswich go down to 10 men. This game was marred by disgusting refereeing, to be honest. I don't know if you saw it, but there was just like mad decisions going on throughout the whole game. Ben Johnson gets booked and then red carded, and he gets sent off, and it was 0-0 at that point, but Newcastle should have probably been about 2-0 up by that point anyway.
So what was the disgusting decisions?
Oh, there was so many, man. There was so many. Penalty shouts, potential other sending offs as well.
As in, like, Newcastle were the beneficiaries, or?
I think Ipswich were, to be honest, but I think, no, on both sides. It was happening on both sides.
Fair enough. But look, it's a win you expect. I was watching some of the highlights. I haven't really seen everything, but yeah, look, Newcastle obviously had to win that game, considering they've got big games against like Chelsea and stuff coming up, and this race for the top four is so tight. They don't have an easy games. They got away at Brighton, then they got Chelsea, then Arsenal and Everton. So 4 tough games left for Newcastle. So it was absolutely a necessity they won this game. They're only 5 points away from Arsenal now, which is mad to think about. They're 5 points away from Arsenal, and they're 5 points away from Villa. So they're kind of as likely to catch second as they are to drop out of the Europa League spots. But
yeah, you said last week that Man City are going to finish above Arsenal, so why not Newcastle?
Well, because City have a lot of easier fixtures, I would say, than Newcastle. But it's going to be very, very tight.
Newcastle have Arsenal to play.
And they have,
And Arsenal could be, on the way to a Champions League final, which they might rest a few players for that one. So if Newcastle can beat Arsenal in that game, you never know.
But also, maybe Arsenal could end up finishing 5th, which would be crazy if that happens. Which, given their form, Arsenal wouldn't completely rule out them having struggles in their remaining Premier League games. And also, obviously, playing Newcastle with in between some Champions League games is going to be very, very tough. So it's going to be interesting if they can drag Arsenal into it, but I doubt it. But yeah, look, Newcastle, they kind of got back to winning ways after what was a terrible performance against Villa. And Ipswich officially relegated, the third team to be officially relegated. So no surprise there. But yeah, I mean...
Apparently this is the earliest ever
all three
teams have been relegated, confirmed.
Well...
It just shows you, we talk about it a lot, but it just shows you the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is just widening and widening.
Yeah, but it's weird to say. I mean, it's true because the last 2 years, all 3 teams have been relegated. But you look at teams like Bournemouth, Fulham. Only the year before that, they were the teams promoted, right? Mm-hmm. And they're now, mid-table Premier League teams.
Yeah.
So, are we saying that within 2 years it's completely changed?
Yeah, I just feel like it's the way the clubs have managed themselves, like Forest and Bournemouth. They invested. They invested big. These other teams are not really investing.
So what are we saying? What is the gap then? So are we saying the gap is just the teams not investing, or is it a quality gap, or what
I think it's, first of all, it goes down to the ownership of the clubs and the way they manage kind of being promoted. If you're not going to invest, then you're not going to stay up. That's the reality. But I guess that's always been the case, hasn't it?
I feel like as well, some of these clubs, maybe they're feeling, because some clubs obviously spend a lot and still go down, right? And then all of a sudden they put themselves in financial trouble. So maybe a lot of these clubs are like, let's get promoted. We'll get promoted, and then we'll try and see what we can do with the players we got, and we'll just take the parachute payments if we go back down, and we'll reinvest again. I think a lot of teams are doing that.
It's mad when you look at Luton, isn't it? Because they got relegated from the Premier League last year, and now they could be going for back-to-back relegations, Luton. And I can't believe it, because they look decent in the Premier League in some games, and they didn't really make any signings in the summer. And they're about to get, and they've still got a lot of the same players, apart from Ross Barkley, who was obviously massive for them. I thought they would be in a shout to come back up next season.
No, they've fallen apart.
It's madness. Anyway, let's move on to Southampton, Fulham. Southampton 1, Fulham 2. We both went for 2-1 to Fulham. It's 2 5-pointers there. And Southampton take the lead early after 15 minutes, but they just couldn't hold on. 15 minutes to go. Smith Rowe scores, and in the 92nd minute, Ryan Sessegnon gives them the lead. You were a few minutes away from doing this episode in Fantasy Guess.
I get to stay a reprieve. The big one's next week, right? Southampton Leicester, that the biggie, the one we've all been waiting for.
The El Crapico, the real El Crapico.
But fair play to Fulham. It's a few times Southampton have been paid back in the last minute now recently, isn't it? Yeah. They did against Palace, and now this one. But I think Ryan Sessegnon, man, what form that guy is on. Gets the winner in this one, and he is really starting to play himself into a lot of form right now. A lot of goals and assists quite regularly in the last few games, and maybe he's starting to finally get over those injury issues, hopefully, for him, which is look, we all know there was a good player in there who's really been battling with injuries and lack of confidence for a number of years, but maybe we're starting to see signs of him finally overcoming it.
Yeah, to be honest, it's nice to see, because he had such a hard time of it at Spurs. Probably all culminating at that game against Mura, where he finally got his chance under Conte and he gets sent off after half an hour without touching the ball. But he had such a hard time of it in Spurs. We all had such high hopes for him when he joined as well, just after the Champions League final. And it just didn't go to plan, mainly down to injuries. And there were a few kind of moments where we thought, all right, we're starting to see Ryan Sessegnon, and then he would just get injured. But now, back at Fulham, back at his hometown club, and we're starting to see the best of him now. So I really hope he kind of kicks on from there, because he just had such a hard time of it in his career so far. Next up is Wolves 3, Leicester 0. Sim went for 3-1. I went for 2-0. Did finish 3-0.
Vardy had to miss that penalty, didn't he?
Oh, did he miss a penalty? I didn't even know.
Vardy missed a penalty, yeah.
Oh, God. At 2-0.
At 2-0, yeah.
But look, this game was all about Matthias Cunha, wasn't it? 2 assists and a goal. Strand Larsen again getting on the score sheet. What a season this guy's had. What a signing it's been for Wolves. And that was that 7 wins on the bounce now? Or 6
wins? 6 wins on the bounce, and a draw before that as well. So 7 unbeaten. What an end to the season Wolves are having. Fair play to them. There was one point where it did look like they were very much a relegation fight, but they've managed to completely claw their way out of it. And now they're ending the season in unbelievable form. And obviously, even without Cunha, they've won a lot of these games. But obviously, since Cunha's come back, he's strutting his stuff again. But there are very serious reports that he's on the verge of a move to Man United, which is very interesting, that he's jumping at the chance to go to Man United right now before the end of the season, when you would have thought there could be a host of clubs in for him in the summer. So does that surprise you, that he's just willing to jump at the chance to join United right now?
It surprises me, and it also makes me very bitter that Spurs can't do a deal like this, because I think this guy is a player of the highest calibre. He's had such a good season this year. He's been one of the best players in the Premier League this year, in my opinion. The way he's carried that Wolves team for the majority of the season, probably we haven't seen anyone do that this season like him. Literally, he's had the whole team on his shoulders for the majority of it. the dribbling ability, the ball carrying ability that this guy has, the knack to score goals from places there he just has no right to score a goal from as well. I don't know the stats, but he must have completely outperformed his XG this year by a crazy amount, because the amount of goals that he's scored from outside the box and stuff has been brilliant. He's been so clinical this year. And it makes me so bitter that Spurs can't do a deal like this when a club like Manchester United, who are in a very similar position to us, are going to be doing a deal and bringing him in and acting like a serious club. But credit to Manchester United. But if I was Cunha, I'll be waiting till the summer to see what other clubs come in for me.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's jumping at that chance to go there. But yeah, if Wolves do lose Cunha, which is obviously inevitable this summer, so they're going to need to recruit smartly, because he has been carrying them a lot. And I know they have won a few games recently without him, which maybe shows there is life without Cunha. But I can still see him being in a bit of trouble if they don't recruit smartly this summer, if they lose him.
Yeah, I think, look, Strand Larsen has obviously stepped up massively when Cunha was out. And I think, like, Wolves have a decent squad there. And then when you're looking at the teams coming up, Burnley, Leeds, and potentially one other, and maybe you've got some other teams that are going to be dragged into it. I think when you're looking at the quality that Wolves have, even without Cunha, I still think they should be all right, but they just need to recruit smartly, don't they? Yeah, you're right. Next up is Bournemouth against Manchester United, which finished 1-1. Sim went for 2-1 to Bournemouth. I went for 1-1, so I get a 5-pointer in this one. And Man United at the death against 10-man Bournemouth.
Yeah. Fair play to United, because they were knocking on the door for a lot of this game, albeit Bournemouth probably were deservedly in the lead at the start. But all kind of switched on a red card for Evan Nilsson, which I've watched back, and it was a VAR given red card. And I don't know if VAR should be given that red card. I know it was kind of a rough challenge, but he kind of slips. He doesn't make unbelievable contact with him. I don't know if it's a red, in my opinion. I think it was a bit harsh to go back on VAR and send him off for that, in my opinion. So I think Bournemouth can feel a bit aggrieved for that. And United were able to get a draw right at the death, a decent point, and fair play to him, albeit did play a very strong team ahead of their Europa League semi-final on Thursday.
Yeah, and there's also rumours that Amad Diallo is back in training for the end of the season, which was a big surprise, but it's massive for Man United, that, because he was brilliant before his injury. But you know what? I'm looking at Man United, and I do see improvements week by week in terms of the way they set up, the way they're able to hurt opponents. And yeah, I think Ruben Amorim is really starting to maybe find his feet a little bit at Manchester United.
I don't know. I haven't really. I mean, they beat Lyon, fair play, which was a crazy game. But I'm
not saying the results are improving. I'm just saying, like, on the pitch, you're starting to see a bit more of a structure and a bit more of Manchester United being able to hurt the opposition.
Yeah, probably. You're seeing a bit more of that. I wouldn't go as far as say he's starting to find his feet, but I would say things are slowly improving, I would say. Yeah, but very slowly.
And last but not least, Liverpool 5, Tottenham 1. Sim went for 4-2. I went for 3-2. But yeah, it was 5-1. Embarrassing display. Spurs go 1-0 up early doors with Solanke from the corner. And after that, it was pretty much one-way traffic, and Spurs players gave up on the pitch, really.
Yeah. It was obviously the battering, which is not all unsurprising. Liverpool confirming their league title, their second league title. Where do you think that league title ranks amongst managerial achievements, like over the years? Slots for winning it in his first season.
Well, he's won it without any investment in the summer as well, which has got to be taken into account. I don't know, but how would you judge a kind of achievement like that, winning the league? I think Klopp obviously left him with a very good team. Mm-hmm. I think this won't happen if Man City don't have that drop-off. I think it's a very good achievement. I don't know where it ranks in terms of other managers. Is it better than
Conte winning it in his first season, or Jose in his first season?
I don't think it's better than Conte winning it in his first season, because I think the team was much better, more like set up for this Liverpool side to go and do it. But I don't know. I don't really know where it ranks in terms of achievements.
I think Spurs that season probably going to get more than Arsenal this season, I would say.
Yeah.
So maybe they've got more competition. You could argue Conte.
I think probably both sides didn't.
In fact, Slot's probably going to get similar points to what Spurs got that season.
Yeah, that's the reality. Look, the reality is with Liverpool, right? I don't think they've been even that good this season. I just think the quality of the league has kind of not been as strong as it has been over the past 4 or 5 years. So the almighty Man City drop-off has massively worked in Liverpool's favour. That's the reality. And on top of that, the Arsenal drop-off as well.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think Liverpool in the end finished on 84 last season. They're on 82, so they're probably going to beat that by a decent amount. That 84 points. They have improved, and they'll be well-deserved winners. But if you do look at the points tallies of Arsenal in second and like third place at the moment, Newcastle, those are usually the points tallies at this point, challenging for top 4, not challenging for a title. So for sure, he's been the beneficiary of that. But you would also say the points tally they're on is usually a title challenging points tally.
Who, Liverpool?
Yeah. At this point, 82 with 4 games to go.
I mean,
they could get 90 points.
Yeah, I guess. But Man City have just like kind of warped what like a title-winning team should be doing, hasn't it? Because like the last 4 years have been something that we've never seen in the Premier League consistently before. Considering
as well, you've got to remember how United dropped off after Fergie, how Arsenal dropped off after Wenger was there. The fact that Slot's come in his first year off under the cloud of a legend of Jurgen Klopp, who has been so good, and he's won it in his first year.
I think it's different though, because you're looking at the state of the playing staff and personnel that maybe Fergie left United in. They were all aging. It was all coming to an end of a cycle. He probably never had the right to win the league in his last year with the squad that he had anyway. He's just an unbelievable manager and got them there. Klopp pretty much did the rebuild for Slot and then left. So it's a bit different.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's obviously credit to Klopp, I guess, as well, how he left the Liverpool and how we didn't leave him with all that work to do like maybe Wenger and Fergie did when they left. So I think that's a good point.
And also Arsenal,
but no one was predicting to win the league,
in decline anyway. Like they hadn't won a league for ages before Wenger.
But no one was predicting Slot to win it.
No, they weren't, and everyone was saying. I think everyone was looking at Wenger and Fergie and the end of their tenures and saying, oh, it's definitely going to be the same for Klopp and Slot. But when you actually look back at it and look at the work that Klopp did and the signings that he made before he left, I think it does make sense.
Do you think? But do you believe it'll be much tougher for them next year?
100%. I think City will be back next season. I think Arsenal will be stronger next season. You might have a few surprises with a few other teams as well. I don't know if Liverpool do back-to-back leagues. I think Man City will be back next season.
I agree. I'm not certain they will, especially with Trent leaving as well. I don't know if they go back-to-back.
Yeah, and also you've got Van Dijk and Salah, another year older. Are they going to be able to continue playing at the levels that they're playing at? I'm also uncertain about that. So they need to make heavy investment this summer, Liverpool, if they're going to be champions again.
Agreed.
And star men. Sim had Matthias Cunha, 1 goal and 2 assists. 9-point haul for Sim for star man this week. I had Harvey Barnes, 0 goals, 0 assists. So Sim did make a bit of ground this weekend.
I did, just a couple more weeks like this and then back in it, back in it. So
weeks are running out now.
4 more. Just we need some big weeks. Look, you saved yourself that United goal. Otherwise, it would have been about 15 points, and all of a sudden, that's 1 week away.
Before the United game on Saturday night, we were talking, and we like half the gap. But then that 5-pointer just saved me a little bit.
All right, but we've seen 22 points is very much recoverable, even in a short space of time. We just need to be very clever with my picks.
Yeah. Well, let us know in the comment section below. Do you think Sim can make the miraculous comeback? It is 22 points. I think it was 32 points last week. So 10 points absolutely gained this week. But we'll see. Game week 34 next. So we'll be back on Wednesday for Predict the Prem. But thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next time. And big up to everyone.